Hello students, welcome to one more session. Students, here we are going to see an interesting topic today. Before that, let me say something. After the birth, we are going to have some interesting physiological, biological changes in our body, right? How these physiological and biological changes occurs by the action of some certain kind of cells. Those cells are nothing but the immune cells. Here, we are going to see today about adaptive immunity, how this adaptive immunity occurring, what are the key roles of adaptive immunity. Let us see. The immunological resistance developed by the individual throughout the life after birth is known as acquired immunity. What is acquired immunity? The immunological resistance developed by the individual throughout the life after the birth is known as acquired immunity. Now, it is a pathogen specific, as you know very well. Here, the immunological adaptive immunity that is pathogen specific, and prior, it is depending upon prior contact with the microbe. So, it is depending upon microorganisms. Hence, it is characterized by immunological memory. It varies from person to person. So, the adaptive immunity is considerably changing from person to person or from one person to another person. Now, the adaptive immunity again divided into two types. That is nothing but first one, acquired immunity, that is active acquired immunity. Second one, passive acquired immunity. Now, in this two, we are going to see the first one, that is the adaptive immunity. Here, the major cells which are involved in adaptive immunity is T cells, nothing but T lymphocytes. What are T cells? What are T cells? T cells are nothing but the T lymphocytes. So, the T lymphocytes or T cells, how they act as immune cells, and B cells, how they act as an immune cells. They show some specific functions. Now, here T cells, B cells, and antigen representing cells participating in the adaptive immunity, adaptive immune system. Now, if you see the B or T lymphocytes, let us see the B lymphocytes. Based upon the size, the lymphocytes are categorized into two types. First one is the smaller lymphocytes, and the second one is larger lymphocytes. So let me show you the classification of lymphocytes. If you see the lymphocytes, lymphocytes are of two types. First one is B lymphocytes. Second one is the T lymphocytes. First one is B lymphocytes. Second one is T lymphocytes. What are B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes? Before that, there are larger lymphocytes and smaller lymphocytes found in the human immune system. Larger lymphocytes and smaller lymphocytes, nothing but larger lymphocytes and smaller lymphocytes. Larger in size, they are larger lymphocytes. Very tiny microscopic lymphocytes are the smaller lymphocytes, and which includes T lymphocytes and the B lymphocytes. Now, large lymphocytes includes large granular lymphocytes and natural killer cells. Now, if you see the adaptive immune system, which contains smaller lymphocytes and larger lymphocytes, if you see the B lymphocytes, they are lymphocytes capable of producing the antibodies against specific antigens or the specific anti microbes, or we can call them as microbes. Antigens are nothing but microbes. Now, the B cells are produced from the stem cells and bone marrow of the adult mammal. Do you know the bursa fabricus of birds able to produce these B lymphocytes? Now, liver of a fetus also has capability of producing the B lymphocytes. Now, mature B cells, which are synthesized various types of antibodies. Mature B lymphocytes can produce various antibodies which are displayed, especially displayed on their membrane surface. If suppose, let me say an example. This is a B lymphocyte. If there are any antigens on their surface, to these antigens, the B cells are able to produce antibodies. If these antibodies are not produced, immunity won't be increases. So here the B lymphocytes are antigen specific. So based upon the nature of antigen present on the surface, they are capable of producing the kind of antibodies against their antigens. Now let me say one more point. The mature B cells, also known as immunocompetent B cells, mature one. So how they mature? Here, B cells are not mature cells. These B cells going to mature after certain kind of time by biological reactions. Now, the mature B cells are called as a immunocompetent B cells. The immunocompetent B cell generally looks like this. They have a cell membrane around their body. They have a cell membrane and there is a nucleus as you can see there. These mature immunocompetent B cells reach the secondary lymphoid organs or lymphatic tissue. Let me say secondary lymphoid organs. Spleen, thymus, generally considered as secondary lymphoid organs or tissues. Here, when they lived, so when the immunocompetent B cells lives inside this secondary lymphoid organs, they matures. Again, they mature. They undergoes for maturation process or differentiation process, and finally able to produce one more type of cells that are called as long-lived cells. These long-lived cells are nothing but acting as a memory cells against some specific antigens or microbes. And the long-lived cells also differentiates. Some of the long-lived cells are differentiate and produces effector plasma cells. These effector plasma cells going to produce some antibodies. Now, the effector plasma cells produces specific antibodies against the antigens, against particular antigens. The memory cells stores the memory against some disease causing pathogens. Suppose, let me say an example. If you are taking vaccination, what is the purpose of vaccination? If you take any vaccine, the memory cells, whatever present in our body, that memory cells are nothing but effector plasma cells able to produce the antibodies. These antibodies shows some or produces some antibodies prior to the disease or before infection of a disease. So whenever the disease causing particular antigen enters into our body, already immunity was developed in our body. So the developed immunity cannot allow this antigen into our immune system or into our body system. So that is why these are called as a memory cells, which can stores the memory of the antigen. Then after that, here T cells, B cells are called a memory cells. What about the T cells? What are the functions of T cells? What are the various responsibilities of T cells? Let us see here. T cells are not only capable of producing antibodies but are called as the specific lymphocytes. Why? Because they cannot recognize the free circulating antigens which present in our bloodstream or in the tissues or in the organs in various places. So the T cells, they are produced in the bone marrow and reach the thymus gland and differentiate into mature T cells. First of all, they are produced in the bone marrow, reach to the thymus gland. They are produced in bone marrow, as we know very well, and reach to the thymus gland and differentiate into mature cells and immunocompetent T cells in the secondary lymphoid organs. Then they transforms into functional T cells. So when they can transform into functional T cells, if they reach to the thymus gland is considered as one of the lymphoid organ. Now, on exposure to antigens, by exposing to this antigens, the T lymphocytes or T cells going to produce two different types of cells. What are they? Here, the two different types of cells are nothing but the TH cells and TC cells. TH nothing but T helper cells. TC nothing but cytotoxic cells. Now, and effector cells are also going to be produced. Now, here the T cells, on the surface of T cells, certain glycoprotein molecules are present. What are glycoproteins? These glycoproteins present on the T cells specific to antigens. And there are cluster of glycoprotein molecules are present on the surface of this T cells, which indicates cluster of antibodies going to produce specific to antigen. Now, each and every glycoprotein has some chemical basis, chemical nature, chemical functions, which can directly recognize specific antigen later on during maturation process. So the T cells are of two types, CD4 cells and cluster of differentiation 4 cells, cluster of differentiation 8 cells. Positive here, plus indicates positive, minus indicates negative, which means what I'm trying to say. CD4 positive cells, CD8 positive cells. Now, based on the functions, T cells are of two types. What are they? TH cells, T helper cells, and TC cells, nothing but cytotoxic cells. Now, monocytes and macrophages and dendritic cells also bears CD4 markers. First one, monocytes, macrophages, and dendritic cells also bears CD4 markers. Clear? Now, the adaptive immunity, which is directly depending upon the helper cells. Helper cells are nothing but CD4 positive cells and are of two types again, which means T cell that plays an important role in the immune system, particularly in the adaptive immune system. Here, helper T cells or TH cells, the most important cells in the adaptive immunity. They increases the adaptive immunity. They initiates the adaptive immunity. They shows various vigorous reactions during adaptive immune response. Now, the active B cells to secretes here, the TH cells also involved to secrete active B cells or B lymphocytes during growth and development. That is also one of the important. Even macrophages in the tissues or tissue level also going to produce by the action or by the cells like T helper cells and T cytotoxic cells. Here, one important point is they also help to activate cytotoxic cells to kill infected target cells. The infected target cells are going to kill by this cytotoxic cells by initiation of the T helper cells. The TH cells, helper cells, involved in the rejection of transplanted tissues. During organ transplantation, what will happen? The pathologists, they are going to match, or the physicians or experts or any specialist, if you take the cardiologist or neurologist, nephrologist, they are going to match the blood. Even if you want to receive any organ, if a patient receives organ, his blood group and the receiver's blood group or donor blood group should be matched. If the receiver's blood group and donor blood group do not match, what will happen? The receiver's blood group rejects the organ, whatever transplanted, which means this rejection occurs by the T helper cells present in the body, receiver's body, or patient who receives the tissues. Clear? Now, the adaptive immunity is antigen specific because of antigen presenting cells. It is an immune cell that detects, directly detects, and engulfs and informs the adaptive immune system. So, an antigen representing cells which has phagocytic function when a pathogen is detected. immediately phagocytic function going to activate. And these antigen presenting cells will phagocytose the pathogen and digest it to form many antibodies, different types of fragments of antibodies to the particular antigen in the body. Clear, students? So, adaptive immunity is having three different types of cells as we have discussed. Antigen representing cells, third type of cells, macrophages, dendritic cells, and B cells or B lymphocytes. Clear, students? Here, this is about adaptive immunity, and we will meet in the next session once again with a new topic or beautiful topic. Until stay tuned, be safe, have a nice day.